Okay, so it's all cut, the edge is all cut nice and straight, it's all pressed up. I am ready to start sewing. So I've got the edge stitch foot on. I have not matched the thread. Normally with this, well, you've got two ways you can go with this. You could decide that you're going to put in the bobbin the thread that you want to show, because we're going to be sewing it like this. We're going to be sewing from the wrong side. So the bobbin thread is going to be what's showing on the right side. So you could be fine with that. Of course, you can't put a heavy top stitching thread in the bobbin. So what I do a lot of the time, mostly what I do with this, is I'll match the bobbin thread to this color of the fabric, make it really well, make it blend in. And then after I sew from this side, tucking this raw edge under, I'll go through with the top stitching thread and sew right on top of that line of stitching that I've already made, just precisely on there. It'll be my guideline. And then that way the bobbin thread won't show and I'll have nice heavyweight top stitching thread. But the other option, especially if it's dress pants or if you don't care, you don't need heavy top stitching thread, then you can just put in the bobbin whatever you want. But for this sample, that's obviously not a full pair of pants but a scrap, I will just use the thread that's in here, which is just black. It's tangled weird, but that's okay. So then I'm going to increase the stitch length. I'm increasing this to just over 3. It'll feed better. It's not structural. It'll look better if it's going to be my only line of stitching. I want a longer stitch length, of course. I'm going to lower the needle, and I'm on straight stitch, like I say, with the edge stitch foot. So then I need to move my needle to the right. Usually I like 3 clicks. 2 clicks you could do, but sometimes it's hard to catch that edge, but it will look pretty good as long as you catch it and keep this up against there. But 3 is about right, so I'll go 3 clicks. Alright, so to start, so we've got it pressed up, as we know here, and but it's only pressed up one time. So I still have this raw edge, so I'm going to fold that under. Now it would have been a good idea to hammer this, it's really heavy, but it'd probably work fine. So I'm going to finger press that first fold. And when you finger press on a heavy seam like this, it's going to take more fabric because of the turn of the cloth. It takes more to wrap around. So normally I like to fold this up about 1/4 inch, but don't start over here and fold it up 1/8 of an inch and then decide that, oh, that's fine, yeah, I can fold that up, no problem, and then you get over here and you can't do that. So start on that bulkiest part and give it a good finger press, and that's going to be a little more short or scant compared to this because of that turn of the cloth again. So anyway, I got it finger pressed. I'm going to start on the inside seam normally, and this is a really thick seam. I'm going to use this hump jumper, the Gina Majig. Actually, I don't use it that much. Usually I hammer. Usually I just hammer those thick parts, but I'm trying to get in the habit of using this thing. They do seem to help. So you put that behind your presser foot, and the idea is that but you don't obviously want it where your needle's going to hit. But the idea is that you're evening out this presser foot. You're keeping it level when the fabric is not level. Alright, so that's why I'm handling that. Now the reason this, like I was referring to before, the reason this method works with stable fabrics but not stretch knit fabrics is you have to keep the fabric taut. That's the whole trick to it. So you finger press to start that first fold, and then you go about 3 or 4 inches or whatever you can get to, easily without, obviously if it's a little tiny kid's pants you can't get as far, but I can get a few inches here, and I'm going to finger press it. I'm pulling it tight, and see how I run my finger under that, and that just evens it out. It's straighter than if you try to press that raw edge up. Okay, now that I've done that, now I actually have to hold my threads, and I'm going to hand wheel. This is really thick, and I haven't hammered it. Oh, the Bernina doesn't even care. What an awesome machine. And the Gina Majig or a hump jumper, you can even put a wadded up piece of fabric, and then once you're past that seam, I wasn't really, then you can take that out. But anything you can put back there that levels that really makes a difference. Okay, now I'm off to the races. Again, I'm going to just finger press, just fold under that amount, and then put it where it belongs, run my finger, pull it nice and tight and run while I'm running my finger under, and it'll just be straighter than you could ever press. Now, the reason that we can't just cut this and say, oh, I'll make up if it's uneven, I'll fix that when I'm pressing or sewing. This line is going to, this is preset, and you don't want this, what you're sewing, stitching line, to go right or left. You want it to be straight. So the only way you can do that is to be consistent in how much you fold under. So, eyeball that. You could even mark it, I suppose, but I just eyeball it and I keep it consistent how much I'm folding under. You could also use your line here to keep your row of stitching consistent distance from the edge, but really you need to focus mostly on that edge stitch foot being against the edge and turning the right amount under. So anyway, and now I'm off to the races. I'll just go. Except for this thread being here is bothering me. I don't want it to get tangled up. I guess it doesn't matter. Oh my gosh. Okay, now I'm off to the races. Again, now I'm kind of running out of my fold here, so I'm all the way to my next seam, so again I'm going to finger press that, knowing I might not press quite as much under when it's bulky because of the turn of the cloth. Alright, so then I'm holding this top. I got it really a little too much. I took a little too much of a bite and I can't get it to stretch, so I'm going to actually hold it ahead of the seam. And when you don't stop to explain stuff, this is a really fast method. Now you see I didn't cut this perfectly straight here, and I can accommodate for that pretty easily. A little wobble like that is okay, as long as the distance doesn't go way off. Alright, now I'm back to a seam. So I'm going to use my Jean-Majig again. I'm kind of liking this thing. Again, I just don't want the needle to go in that hard plastic. Gosh, these machines just handle bulk so well. It's such an amazing little basic Bernina, but wow. Alright, now I'm to a point where I can pull on my final edge just to kind of make sure that my distance is still good and even. And again, I'm going to pull it taut and kind of tuck it under. I'm working it more than I usually do. This is really a fast method. And you can see it doesn't look that great with the wrong color, but you can see it's also really straight and nice. And when you get back to here, if you want to be fussy, you can, pre-trim that. I guess I would have back-stitched or something. That's the bummer about starting on the seam. You really don't want to back-stitch over that. But I started a little bit ahead of the seam. You can use this hump jumper in this direction too, although I don't really need to. But you can, when you're going from thin to thick or thick to thin, that hump jumper can be pretty handy. So, as you can see, because of the edge stitch foot, it looks really pro on the inside. To me, it's much cleaner than I could ever get when I iron it, much straighter, and it's a consistent length, and that was a function of ironing accurately and turning under that amount accurately, which really isn't hard to eyeball. Like I say, you could mark it, but yeah, that's the technique I like for jeans, casual pants, and something like a super long hem at the edge of that cloak fabric for a cloak, or curtains. Something you have to do a lot of, and you really don't want to press up 10 gazillion yards of fabric, or just even if you don't mind pressing, I just think it turns out better. It just gets nice and even there. So that's my method.